The council had always thought humans were nothing but old stories. They spoke about a warrior species from a faraway world called Earth, but no one really believed it was true. The council members were powerful beings who ruled half the galaxy with fear and weapons. They thought no one could challenge them. Captain Harrison walked through the dark corridors of the flagship Independence. His boots made small sounds on the metal floor. He was a tall man with hard eyes and a strong jaw. His uniform was dark blue with silver badges showing his rank. He had spent his whole life preparing for this moment. Now it was finally here. The command center was busy with soldiers and officers. Everyone moved fast and spoke in low voices. Screens showed maps of space, enemy ships, and weapon systems. Harrison stood before the main window and looked out into the black emptiness of space. Below them was the planet, the home world of the... It was a planet covered in tall cities made of white metal and blue crystal. Harrison had 30,000 soldiers under his command. He had 200 warships. He had weapons that could destroy an entire city with one shot. He was ready to change the galaxy forever. A young officer named Daniel Price came to stand next to the captain. Daniel was nervous. His hands moved around as he spoke. "Sir, the fleet is still not moving. They have seen our ships. They know we are here, but they are not attacking." Harrison nodded slowly. He had expected this. They were arrogant. They thought they were too strong to fear anyone. They had never met humans before. They did not know what humans could do. "They will attack soon," Harrison said. His voice was calm and sure. "They will think we are weak because we came to talk first. That will be their mistake. That will be the last mistake they ever make." The communication system came alive. A voice boomed through the speakers. It was a voice hard and sharp. The words came from the command ship. They were words of warning and anger. "Unidentified fleet, you are entering restricted space. Turn back now or be destroyed. We are the Empire. We are the strongest power in this galaxy. No one challenges us in lives." Harrison leaned forward and spoke into the communication system. His words were clear and cold. "I am Captain Harrison of the human military. I speak for all of Earth and all of humanity. The age of your power is over. The age of fear under your rule has ended. We have come to stop you." The ship did not respond. There was silence for a long moment. Then, from the fleet, bright lines of light shot across space. These were plasma weapons, the most destructive weapons they had. They came toward the human ships like burning arrows. The human fleet was ready. The shields went up. The air inside the command center began to shake. Alarms rang out, but the shields held strong. The weapons could not hurt the human ships. The human engineers had built ships that could survive anything. "Fire back," Harrison commanded. His voice was hard. "Show them what real power is." The human weapons came to life. Missiles shot out from the ships like deadly rain. These were not simple weapons. Each missile could think for itself. Each missile could change its path in the air. Each missile knew where to hit to cause the most damage. The ships had no defense against this kind of attack. Their shields broke apart. Their metal hulls came open. Fire spread through their ships. The warriors inside died by the thousands. The strong empire that had ruled for so long began to fall apart in minutes. General Lisa watched the battle from another ship. She was a woman with short gray hair and strong hands. She had fought in many wars before this one. She had never lost a battle. She would not lose this one. She looked at the battle screens and saw what was happening. The fleet was dying. In 1 hour, they had lost half their ships. In 2 hours, more than half of what was left was destroyed or badly hurt. The military, which thought it was the greatest power in the galaxy, was being cut down like grass. "The ground forces are ready," said Colonel Freeman. He was a younger officer, only 32 years old. But he was smart and brave. He had trained for ground combat his whole life. "Send them in," Lisa ordered. "Take the planet, take the capital city, stop all resistance. We do this fast and clean." The human soldiers dropped from the sky in drop ships made of strong metal. They fell like rain on the cities. When they landed, they came out of the ships with their weapons ready. They wore metal suits that made them stronger and faster. They moved through the city streets with a single purpose. The soldiers tried to stop them. They came with their own weapons and their own armor, but they were not as strong, they were not as fast, they were not as smart. The human soldiers came at them with perfect order and perfect discipline. They did not make mistakes. They did not stop. They did not feel fear. Freeman led his soldiers through the streets. He spoke into his communication device. "Push forward. Take the government building. Find the leaders and bring them out. Do it with no more killing than you need to. The battle lasted only hours. By nightfall, the main military was broken. Their ships were destroyed or taken. Their soldiers were dead or captured. Their leaders were hiding in safe places, but the humans would find them. Harrison stood again at the window of the flagship. He looked down at the conquered planet. Smoke rose from the cities. Fires burned in the streets, but the fighting was over. They had lost. Humans had won. A message came from the government. They asked to speak about surrender. Harrison was cold in his reply. You will surrender all your weapons. You will free all the slaves you hold across your empire. You will give us full control of your government. If you do not do these things, we will destroy everything you have. The leaders understood. They had no choice. Their great empire, the empire that had ruled for thousands of years, was gone. In a single day, it had fallen to a species they thought was only a legend. The news spread fast through the galaxy. Other empires heard what happened too. They heard about the human ships and the human soldiers. They heard about the power that humans had. Fear began to grow in the hearts of every powerful species in the galaxy. They all asked the same question. If they could fall so fast, could they fall even faster? Were humans a threat to everyone? The fall of the Empire sent shockwaves through every corner of the galaxy. News traveled fast. Every government and every military leader received reports about what had happened. The reports all said the same thing. A new species had appeared. They were called humans. They had destroyed the Great Fleet in a single day, and they were not done yet. The Empire held emergency meetings. The leaders sat in a great hall with walls made of crystal that glowed with colors. They argued and shouted at each other. Some wanted to attack the humans before humans attacked them. Some wanted to run and hide. Some wanted to send messages asking for peace. The Federation also held meetings. They were a species with many arms and eyes that could see in all directions. They were smart. They were quick. But even they understood that something had changed. The galaxy would never be safe again. The Dominion, which had always been alone and powerful, decided to build more weapons. They thought if they had enough weapons, they could fight anyone. They did not understand that weapons alone were not enough. They did not understand that humans had something else. Humans had the will to fight. Humans had the skill to win. General Lisa landed on with her army. She came in drop ships with 10,000 soldiers under her command. The planet was still smoking from the battles. Cities were broken and burned. Soldiers either lay dead or were held as prisoners in camps. Lisa was not a cruel woman. She was not evil, but she was strong. She was a leader who did what needed to be done. She believed that the only way to build peace was to first break the power of those who had used violence to rule. She walked through the capital city with Colonel Freeman. The people watched her with fear in their eyes. They had thought their empire was forever. They had thought their strength was unbeatable. Now they understood they were wrong. "How many slaves do the hold?" Lisa asked Freeman. "The reports say 3 million, Freeman answered. "They are spread across 50 different planets. Some are working in mines, some are working in factories, some are just held as servants." "Free them all," Lisa said. Her order was simple. "Today, tonight, use whatever ships we have, go to every planet, take the slaves and bring them home. Let them decide what they want to do with their lives." Freeman nodded. He understood the order. This was what made humans different. After winning a war, humans freed the people who had been hurt. They did not make new slaves. They did not take new power for themselves. They broke the chains that had bound others. While Lisa worked on, other events were happening in other parts of the galaxy. The Federation received intelligence reports. They learned that humans were building more ships. They learned that humans had weapons that could destroy entire star systems. They learned that humans were sending military forces to other planets. The leaders made a decision. They would attack first. They would gather their ships and strike at the human forces before humans could become too strong. It was a decision made from fear. It was a decision that would lead to their end. Admiral Henry Cooper received orders from Earth. He was an old man, 61 years old, but his mind was sharp. He had spent 40 years in the military. He had fought in more battles than most people could imagine. He had never lost. "Take 400 ships," his commanders told him. "Go to the Federation, destroy their military, show them what happens when they threaten humanity." Admiral Henry Cooper studied maps of the systems. He saw where their fleets were. He saw where their defense stations were. He saw where their governments made their decisions, and he made a plan. The plan was not simple. It was not a direct attack. It was something much smarter. It was a plan that would break them from the inside without needing to fight their entire fleet. The human ships moved through space like ghosts. They did not attack the main defense stations. Instead, they attacked the things the defense stations needed to work. They destroyed communication satellites. They took out power plants. They cut supply lines so that food and fuel could not reach the soldiers. The fleet tried to attack back, but they could not see the humans clearly. They could not talk to each other. They could not get information about where the humans were. It was like fighting an enemy you could not see. It was like trying to catch shadows. In the first week, the military lost 1,000 ships. In the second week, they lost more. Their soldiers were tired and hungry. Their commanders did not know what to do. The Great Federation, which had ruled star systems for thousands of years, was falling apart. Commander Foster worked with Admiral Henry Cooper. She was a woman of 40 with dark eyes and a calm voice. She had spent 25 years fighting. She understood war. She understood how to win. One day, Foster received a message from a commander. The message was simple. "We cannot fight anymore. Our people are dying of hunger. Our ships are broken. We ask for surrender. We ask for peace." Admiral Henry Cooper looked at the message. He showed it to Foster. "What do we do?" he asked. "We accept," Foster said. "We show them that humans are not just warriors. We show them that we can be merciful when others give up." The Federation surrendered. Their military was broken. Their government agreed to follow human orders. 3 million soldiers were allowed to live. They were told to put down their weapons and go home. They were told that humans were not their enemies anymore. Humans were their new leaders. News of the defeat spread through the galaxy like fire. Every species heard the message. Humans could not be beaten. Humans would not be stopped. Humans were too strong. Humans were too smart. Humans were unstoppable. The Empire watched and saw what was coming. They had enough time to prepare their surrender. They did not want to fight the way the and had fought. They did not want to lose their people and their cities. The Dominion tried to hide. They thought if they stayed quiet, the humans would not find them. But humans found everything. Within weeks, human ships were at their borders. Within days, their military was attacked. Within hours, they understood they had no choice but to give up. One by one, the great empires of the galaxy fell. Not all of them fought. Some simply accepted that a new power had come to the galaxy. Some understood that the age of their rule was over. General Lisa stood in the command center on. She received reports from all around the galaxy. They had surrendered. They had surrendered. They had surrendered. They had surrendered. Empire after empire, species after species, they all gave up. "Is it really over?" asked a young officer named Michael Stevens. Lisa nodded slowly. "No," she said. "This is not the end. This is the beginning. Now we have the galaxy trembled under the weight of human power. Everywhere you looked, you could see the results of the battles. Broken ships floated in space. Destroyed cities lay in ruins on planets that had been great centers of power. The old order was dead. A new order was being born." Captain Harrison made a speech to the leaders of the galaxy. He stood in a great hall on a neutral space station. Around him were the leaders of every species that had once ruled parts of the galaxy. Some were with their smooth blue skin. Some were with their many arms. Some were with bodies made of crystal that glowed with light. Some were beings that looked almost like humans but with different colored skin and strange eyes. Harrison was tall and straight. His uniform was perfect. His eyes showed no mercy and no weakness. "You have lived for thousands of years," he began. His voice was hard and clear. "You have ruled through fear. You have made slaves of weaker species. You have taken their resources. You have taken their freedom. You have taken their hope. This is finished. This ends today." The alien leaders sat in silence. They had lost their wars. They had seen their fleets destroyed. They had no choice but to listen to what humans had to say. "From this moment forward, all slaves are free," Harrison continued. "Every being held in chains will be released. Every species that has been forced to work will be given the choice to do what they want. This is not a request. This is a law. This is something that will happen whether you agree or not." A leader stood up. His name was Lord Vex. He had ruled the Empire for 500 years. He was old and tired. He looked at Harrison with eyes that had seen empires rise and fall. "What will happen to my people?" Lord Vex asked. "Will you kill us? Will you make us slaves to replace the ones we enslaved?" Harrison shook his head. "No," he said. "Your people will live, but your empire is gone. Your military is gone. Your power is gone. If you accept this, if you work with us to build peace, then you will have a place in the new galaxy. but you will never again have power to hurt others." The Crystal Queen, whose body sparkled like diamonds, also stood. She spoke with a voice that sounded like crystal singing. "How can we trust you? You came to our galaxy and destroyed everything. Why should we believe you will be different from us?" "Because we will prove it," Harrison answered. "We will release the slaves. We will rebuild the worlds you destroyed. We will share technology and knowledge. We will help your people learn to live in peace. Not because we have to, but because we believe in something different. We believe that power should be used to help, not to hurt." The first species to officially surrender was the Empire. Their leaders came before Harrison and gave him the codes to all their weapons and all their military bases. They gave him records of all their planets and all their resources. They accepted that they would no longer be the rulers. They would be part of something bigger. They would be part of the new human-led galaxy. The Federation followed, then the Dominion, then smaller empires one by one. They all understood the same thing. Humans had won. Resistance was impossible. The only choice was to accept the new reality. Colonel Freeman was given a special job. He was told to go to the planets where slaves were held. He was told to free them and help them get home. It was a huge job. There were millions of slaves spread across hundreds of planets. Freeman did not complain. He took thousands of ships and thousands of soldiers. He traveled from planet to planet. On each planet, he found the prisons where people were held. He found the mines where they worked. He found the factories where they labored under the whip of their masters. On one planet called Prime, Freeman found 300,000 slaves. They had been taken from their homes 20 years before. Some of them had never even seen the planet they came from. But Freeman told them they were free. He gave them supplies. He gave them ships. He helped them find their way home. The slaves cried when they learned they were free. They had thought they would die in chains. They had thought they would never see their families again. But now they had hope. Now they had freedom. Now they had a future. As the slaves were freed, the galaxy began to change. Worlds that had been dark and broken now saw light. Hope grew where there had only been despair. And slowly, people began to understand that humans were not just warriors. Humans were builders. Humans had come to fix a broken galaxy. Commander Foster worked on communication between all the different species. She created a system where every species could talk to every other species. She made laws that were fair to everyone. She made sure that no one was left behind or forgotten. Foster was from a military family. Her father had been a soldier. Her grandfather had been a soldier. But she had never wanted to just destroy things. She had always wanted to build something. Now she finally had the chance. She looked at reports from freed slaves. She saw families being reunited. She saw children seeing their parents for the first time in years. She saw parents holding bobbies they had never met. And she understood why humans had fought so hard. Humans had fought to make these moments possible. General Lisa began the work of rebuilding. She took human engineers and soldiers from many different species. She sent them to broken planets. She gave them tools and materials. She told them to build something new. She told them to build something that would last. On the planet where the first battle had been fought, humans and worked together. Workers helped human engineers rebuild their own cities. It was strange work. It was work that would have seemed impossible a few months before. But now it felt natural. The workers understood that humans could have destroyed them completely. Humans could have killed every and taken their planet. But humans did not do that. Instead, humans helped them rebuild. This made them understand something important. Humans were strong, but they were also fair. Messages came from across the galaxy. Species that had been enslaved wanted to thank humans. They sent representatives to Harrison. They offered him gifts. They offered him their loyalty. They asked him to lead them into a new future. Harrison accepted their thanks with simple words. "We did not do this to become your rulers," he said. "We did this because it was right. Now we must work together to build something that has never been built before. We must build a galaxy where all beings can live in peace." The leaders agreed to this. The leaders agreed. The leaders agreed. Every species, one by one, agreed to accept human leadership and work together to build a new order. Admiral Henry Cooper stood in the command center and watched as human military forces began to change. The ships that had fought in battles were being retrained for other work. Soldiers who had been warriors were learning to be builders and teachers and healers. The first meeting of the Galactic Council took place on the planet Meridian, the former home of the Empire. The great hall that had once been filled with crystal thrones now held seats for representatives from every species in the galaxy. There were thousands of them. Each one had traveled a great distance to be here. Each one wanted to see what kind of galaxy humans would build. Harrison entered the hall wearing a simple black uniform. He did not wear gold or jewels. He did not dress like an emperor or a king. He dressed like a soldier who had become a leader. His face was calm. His eyes were sharp. Everyone in the hall watched him walk to the center. "We are here to build something new," Harrison said. His voice carried through the entire hall without needing to be made louder. "We are here to create laws that are fair. We are here to create systems that help everyone. We are here to make sure that never again will any being be held in slavery. Never again will one species rule through fear. Never again will one empire crush the dreams of others." The leaders of the galaxy listened. They heard not just his words, but his meaning. Humans were powerful, but they were using that power for something more than just ruling. They were using it to build a better galaxy. General Lisa was named the Minister of Defense. It was her job to make sure that the old weapons of war were taken apart and destroyed. She did not destroy them to be cruel. She did this because the galaxy needed to move forward. You could not build peace while weapons of destruction still existed. Lisa set up programs across the galaxy. She took military production facilities and changed them into factories that made things to help people. Factories that had made bombs now made medicines. Factories that had made weapons now made tools for building. The resources that had been used for war were now used for life. She also took soldiers and gave them new jobs. Some became teachers, some became doctors, some became engineers who helped rebuild broken worlds. The soldiers who had learned to fight now learned to build. Many of them were happier doing this work. They understood that they had been warriors, but they could also be something else. Colonel Freeman became the Minister of Reconstruction. His job was to rebuild all the worlds that had been hurt by war. He had a huge task. There were hundreds of planets that had been damaged. Some had lost their cities. Some had lost their forests. Some had lost their water. Some had lost so much that it seemed impossible to rebuild. But Freeman did not think about impossible. He thought about possible. He gathered engineers and workers from every species. He gave them plans and materials. He told them to work together. And slowly, broken worlds began to heal. On the planet Prime, humans and the native people worked together to rebuild a city that had been destroyed. They had been slaves for so long that they did not believe at first that they were free. They did not believe that they could work on their own city and keep what they built. Freeman spent days talking to them. "This city is yours," he told them. "You will build it, you will own it. Humans will help you, but you will decide what it looks like. You will decide how it is built. This is your world, we are just here to help." For the first time in generations, they smiled. They worked hard. They worked with joy. They built something beautiful, and when the city was done, they owned it completely. No one could take it from them. Foster became the Minister of Relations. Her job was to make sure all the different species understood each other and worked together. She knew that peace would not be easy. Different species had different ways. They had different beliefs. They had different needs. But Foster believed that if you talked to each other and listened, you could solve any problem. She created systems where each species had a voice in the government. She made sure that no one species had more power than another. She created courts where disputes between species could be settled fairly. She worked every day to make the galaxy more united. One of her biggest challenges came when the Antha had a conflict. They wanted to build a factory on a mountain that the thought was sacred. The two species argued. They were ready to fight. Foster brought them together. She listened to the explain why they needed the factory. She listened to the explain why the mountain was important to them. Then she asked them to think of a solution that would make both groups happy. After days of talking, they found the answer. The factory would be built on a different mountain, one that was not sacred. They would help build the factory and would have jobs there. They would respect the sacred mountain and would protect it. Both sides were happy. Dr. Rachel Foster, the chief scientist of the human military, became the head of the Science Council. Her job was to use science and technology to help all species in the galaxy. She did not keep human technology only for humans. She shared it. She taught other species how to use it. She worked with scientists from every species to create new inventions that would help everyone. She created hospitals where doctors from every species worked together. She created schools where young beings from all species learned together. She created research centers where the minds in the galaxy worked on problems that had no solution before. And slowly, the galaxy became healthier and stronger. Harrison spent his time making decisions about the future. He met with leaders from each species. He listened to their problems. He asked for their ideas. He tried to be fair to everyone. It was hard work. Many times he had to make choices that made some people unhappy. But he always tried to do what was right for the entire galaxy, not just for humans. 5 years after the war ended, the galaxy looked completely different. The weapons were gone. The slaves were free. The broken worlds were being rebuilt. Different species were learning to work together. There was still work to be done, but the direction was clear. The galaxy was healing. Young humans who had grown up in this new time did not remember the old wars. For them, working with aliens and living in peace was normal. They learned the languages of other species. They studied their histories. They traveled to their worlds. They made friends with beings from 100 different planets. It was in this time that a young human named Daniel Price visited the planet. He was there to study the history of the First War. He met a girl named who was studying the history of humans. They became friends. They talked for hours about their species and their cultures. Neither of them saw each other as conquerors or conquered. They just saw each other as people. This scene played out 1,000 times across the galaxy. Humans and aliens becoming friends. Humans and aliens having families together. Humans and aliens building communities where everyone was welcome. The old empires still existed, but they were no longer ruled by fear and weapons. The still lived on their planet, but now they governed themselves with human guidance. The still lived in their systems, but now they made their own decisions about their future. The still kept their crystal cities, but now they shared them with visitors from every species. Harrison stood in his office and looked at reports from across the galaxy. Schools were opening, hospitals were being built, new towns were being created, resources were being shared. The gap between rich planets and poor planets was becoming smaller. More beings had food and shelter and hope than ever before. He thought about the battles that had started this transformation. He thought about the millions of beings who had been hurt. He thought about the cities that had been destroyed. And he understood that it had been necessary. The old order could not have changed any other way. Sometimes you have to 10 years had passed since the day Captain Harrison's fleet appeared in space. 10 years since the empires had fallen. 10 years since the galaxy had changed forever. The transformation was complete. The old order was dead. The new order was thriving. General Lisa stood on the observation platform of the space station above Earth. She was looking down at her home planet, the planet that had launched the humans into the galaxy, the planet that had sent warriors to conquer and then builders to repair. Lisa was older now. Her hair was fully gray. Her hands were not as steady as they used to be, but her mind was still sharp. Her eyes still saw everything that needed to be seen. She had completed her mission as Minister of Defense. The weapons were gone. The military had been reduced to a small group that helped with construction and protection of important sites, not with conquest and control. She thought about the young soldiers she had commanded during the wars. Many of them were no longer soldiers. They were teachers and doctors and engineers. Some of them had married beings from other species. Some of them had children who looked like nothing anyone had ever seen before. Children who were part human and part alien. Children who would grow up in a galaxy at peace. Next to her, Admiral Henry Cooper stood. He was older too, now in his 70s. His back was bent. His voice was quieter. But his eyes still shone with the intelligence that had made him such a great commander. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Henry Cooper asked. It was a question he had been asking himself for the past 10 years. "We took power from an entire galaxy. We forced them to change. We made them give up their weapons and their freedom. How is that different from what they did before?" Lisa did not answer right away. She looked at the planet below. She looked at the blue oceans and the green continents. She thought about all the humans who lived there. She thought about all the humans who had gone out into the galaxy as soldiers and had become something else. "We did it differently," she finally said. "We won the war, but then we gave power away. The empires we defeated would never have done that. They would have ruled forever. We showed that might does not have to mean the right to rule forever. We showed that power can be used to build instead of destroy." Colonel Freeman had finished his work as Minister of Reconstruction. The last broken world had been rebuilt. The last destroyed city had been restored. The last desperate people had been given hope and resources. The galaxy was no longer by war. But Freeman did not go back to Earth. He stayed in the galaxy. He took a job helping young beings from many different species learn how to work together. He taught them about construction. He taught them about problem solving. He taught them about how to work with beings who were different from themselves. One of his students was a young human named Thomas Grant. Thomas Grant had been born after the war ended. He had never seen a battle. He had never known fear of the old empires. He studied with and they all learned from each other. They all became friends. Commander Foster had become something more than a government official. She had become a symbol of hope. She traveled throughout the galaxy, visiting young beings from every species. She told them about peace. She told them about cooperation. She told them that they could build something greater than any empire ever had. In her travels, she met a woman named who had also become a teacher. They became friends. They worked together to create schools where young humans and young learned together. They worked to make sure that the next generation would grow up knowing peace, not war. Dr. Rachel Foster continued her work as the head of the Science Council. Under her leadership, the galaxy had made amazing discoveries. Scientists from every species had worked together to develop new medicines. They had created new ways to generate clean energy. They had found ways to grow food that could be eaten by all species, no matter how different they were. One of her greatest achievements was the creation of the Universal Translator. This device allowed any being in the galaxy to understand any other being, no matter what language they spoke. It created a way for even the most different species to communicate and understand each other. Harrison spent his final years as Chancellor working on the future. He created systems that would work even after he was no longer the leader. He created laws that protected freedom. He created government structures that gave every species an equal voice. He made sure that power could not be held by one person or one species forever. When he was ready to give up his position, he chose a council made up of members from 10 different species. No human held the main power anymore. Humans were part of the government, but they were not in charge. The galaxy was learning to govern itself without one single leader holding all the power. The celebration when Harrison stepped down from power was the biggest celebration the galaxy had ever seen. Trillions of beings gathered in virtual reality to watch the ceremony. Young beings from 100 different worlds came together to thank the man who had brought them peace. But Harrison did not see himself as a great leader. He saw himself as someone who had done what was necessary. "I came to your galaxy as a warrior," he said in his final speech as Chancellor. "I came with weapons and soldiers. I came to change things that were broken, but I learned something important. The real power is not in weapons. The real power is in the ability to listen. The real power is in the ability to work with those who are different from you. The real power is in building something that makes life better for all beings." He left office and returned to Earth. He spent his remaining years writing and teaching. He wrote about the history of the conquest and the peace that followed. He taught young humans about responsibility. He taught them that power is not something to keep for yourself. Power is something to use to help others. On the 10th anniversary of the end of the war, millions of beings gathered on the planet where everything had started. They came to remember the war and to celebrate the peace. There were humans. There were 100 other species. Lisa spoke at the ceremony. Her voice was weaker now, but it still carried the strength of a great leader. "We came as conquerors," she said, "but we left as builders. We took power from those who had used it to hurt others, but then we gave that power back to the people. We showed that humans could be different. We showed that conquest does not have to be about keeping what you take. It can be about freeing those who are held down." General Lisa died 5 years after the ceremony. At her funeral, beings from every species came to pay their respects. She had been a warrior, but she had also been a builder. She had been a leader who understood that the most important victories were not the ones you won with weapons, but the ones you won by helping others become free. The galaxy that had been ruled by fear for thousands of years was now a place of hope. The species that had been enemies were now partners. The young beings growing up in this time did not dream of conquest. They dreamed of discovery. They dreamed of building things together. They dreamed of a future where all beings could live in peace. The legend of the human conquest lived on in the galaxy's memory. Children learned about it in schools. Artists created works about it. Scientists studied it. But the meaning of the legend changed over time. At first, it was a story about war and victory. Humans were the mighty warriors who had conquered everyone. But as time went on, the story became something different. It became a story about the choice humans made after the war. It became a story about power and what you do with it. It became a story about building instead of destroying. It became a story about how the greatest strength is not in weapons, but in the will to make things better. Thousands of years later, when historians looked back at this time, they did not call it the age of human conquest. They called it the age of human transformation. They called it the time when a species used ultimate power to create something that had never existed before. A galaxy where all beings could live together. A galaxy where might did not make right. A galaxy where power was used to help, not to hurt. The armies had overrun everything, but they had left something behind. They had left a galaxy that was better than what had come before. They had left freedom for the oppressed. They had left hope for the hopeless. They had left a future where beings of every kind could work together and dream together and build together. And that, in the end, was the true victory. Not the battles that were won, not the empires that fell, but the galaxy that was built from the ruins of the old order. A galaxy that would last forever as a monument to the day when humans showed the entire universe what they were truly capable of doing. Something completely before you can build something better. A message came from Earth. It said that humans there were proud of what their military had done. But it also said something else. It said that the real test was just beginning. The test was not whether humans could conquer. The test was whether humans could rule justly. The test was whether humans could build a galaxy that was fair and good for everyone. Harrison took that message seriously. He knew that the easy part was over. The easy part was winning the wars. The hard part was building something that would last. The hard part was making sure that all the different species in the galaxy could live together in peace. And he was ready for that hard work. All of humanity was ready. "Is this what we wanted?" asked a young officer named Sarah Cooper. "No," Admiral Henry Cooper said. "This is better than what we wanted. We wanted to win, but now we have something more. Now we have the chance to build something that will last forever." The galaxy was quiet for the first time in thousands of years. The age of empires was over. The age of war was ending. A new age was beginning. An age where humans would lead not by the power of their weapons, but by the strength of their commitment to peace and justice. The armies had conquered everything, but the true victory was just beginning. To decide what kind of galaxy we want to build, now we have to prove that we deserve to rule. She looked out at the conquered worlds below. She thought about all the work that lay ahead. She thought about all the people she would have to help. She thought about the future that humans would build. The armies had overrun everything. Now came the hard part. Now came the time to build something better. Captain Harrison received a message from his leaders on Earth. It was simple and direct. "You have done well. The galaxy is watching. Continue with the mission. Show them why humans are not something to laugh at anymore." Harrison looked at the conquered world below his ship. He thought about Earth, his home planet. He thought about all the humans who had worked to make this moment happen. He thought about all the battles that would come next. The legend had become real, and the galaxy would never be the same.